Good evening. I'm Julie Andrus of KeyBank Capital Markets, and I am the co-chair of the STA Women in Finance Committee. I'm very pleased to be here tonight and honored to have the privilege of introducing our recipients for the 2021 STA Women in Finance Mentor of the Year Award. And well, tonight's moderator hasn't shown up, so I think I'm going to be moderating for you guys. I apologize, Sue Herera. We're not exactly sure what happened, but the STA Women in Finance Mentor of the Year Award celebrates those women who actively serve as exemplary role models, leaders, and advocate for women in finance. The Webster Dictionary defines a mentor as an experienced and trusted advisor. But to all of us, being a mentor involves time and making yourself available to support and advise someone when they need it, delivering that support in a way that makes sense to them, and always keeping that person's best interest in mind. Based on the nomination letters, it's clear that Julie, Jennifer, and Lisa truly embody the definition of mentor and what it means to professionals in the finance industry. So again, it's my honor to introduce this year's recipients. First, we have Julie Bauer, Chief External Relations Officer of the Options Clearing Corporation. In Julie's nomination letter, it was written, Julie has consistently paid it forward over her career and in others at CBOT, FINRA, and OCC. A member of OCC's management team, she successfully advocates for many colleagues and speaks candidly to other senior leaders to ensure their colleagues are recognized for their contributions. Jennifer Fagen, Head of Equity Products at Dash Financial. In Jennifer's letter, it was written, Jennifer has always been about educating, mentoring new individuals that enter our business. Jen is a goal-oriented, highly motivated, and collaborative team player, which is evident through the numerous firm initiatives that she has helped bring across the finish line at Dash. And finally, we have Lisa Utasi, Senior Trader at ClearBridge Investments. In Lisa's nomination letter, it was written, I had the pleasure of knowing Lisa for the past 15 years, and she's always someone that has made herself available to me. Lisa pushes me to be better myself through involvement in organizations like STA, Stanny STA, and NOIP. She is always there for advice and support. So I'm going to skip over Sue's introduction and just kind of go quite right into the questions. So sorry, guys, you're stuck with me. I'm not really the Sue Herera of the world, but I can try for the night. So.
Thanks, Julie.
So I'm going to start out with our main question that we had discussed on our call earlier this week, mentoring in general. And this is actually really exciting for me to do as taking on some mentorship roles myself. So ladies, mentoring, what really does it mean to you? And what are some experience you've had in doing it? And maybe Julie, we can start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Julie. And let me start by saying thank you to STA and Jim Toes and Don Combs, and of course you, Julie, and Kate for chairing the Women in Finance. I think TA's built a great community, and you know, they do it with heart, and I appreciate opportunities like this when we get to see the heart of our industry. You know, I was thinking a lot about mentoring with this award, and I like the reference in the definition to trusted advisor, because I do think trust is a really important part of it. And I think it really has to do with encouraging others and approaching those relationships with a generosity of not just your knowledge, but of your spirit, and then using your voice to create a supportive environment for those people and recognition of them. You know, I've been fortunate to have a lot of people who've taken an interest in me and shared their knowledge with me. I had a great mentor in my first boss, Celeste Jerkovich at the Chicago Board of Trade, who I believe is tuned in today. And that was at the very beginning of my career. So there was a lot of teaching involved in that. But it evolved over time, you know, really into encouragement, and it gave me courage to step up and take chances and do more and start to build confidence in my own abilities. And I think that's a really important part of what we all need to do for the next generation coming along. And I think that, you know, part of building that trust is just being willing to show some vulnerability talk about things that maybe didn't go as well as you wanted them to, along with, celebrating the little wins. I think that as you look at it over time, what you find is that mentorship really goes both ways. I feel like I leave a lot of my mentoring conversations learning as much as I perhaps have offered to anyone else. So it's just a great opportunity. It's a good win-win in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, adding on to what Julie said, I mean, I think you really hit it home, but a couple of things stood out. I think confidence is key. Going back to my days, the people that I've worked for, the different mentors, there have been great ones, there have been not great ones. And I've learned the things that work for me, to help empower me, give me the confidence and feel supported and to be able to grow. I mean, that's really what we're doing, right? We're showing these people, most of them are, newer to this industry. At Dash, I manage our, younger team of 3 to 4 people. They come right out of school. They're entering a new world where they don't really know the way of, how things are. So to have someone there to, show them that it's okay to be curious, ask why, build that confidence, how to be a self-starter, right? And create your own path. I think that is something that's so key and that I find so valuable in being able to impart that, onto some people that are coming into this newer industry or that, maybe older, coming from a different industry, whatever it may be. But I think the confidence, the trust, the support, that ultimately is what empowers, people that we are able to mentor, that's what empowers them to essentially be successful in our community. So that's something that means a tremendous amount to me. Like I said, I've had mentors in the past that have showed me that, kudos to them. But, it's become a very important part of my life because without that, people get lost and they don't know how to create their own paths. So that's how I feel about it.
Well,
Ladies,
and I think,
this is, yes, I don't know what happened. I was listening to the whole previous discussion, which was wonderful. And then I got a message from Jim, you can log in now. And I'm like, I've been logged in for a half an hour. So my apologies for whatever technical glitch happened, but I've been listening to you and listening to the previous panel and it's been terrific. So with that, Lisa, why don't you go ahead and finish your thoughts?
oh, absolutely. Hi, Sue. It's good to have you. Thank you for being part of our evening. We're so thrilled. You've always been an inspiration. You've been an inspiration to us. Watching you on financial television has been just wonderful. I mean, it just shows every girl that's out there that there's a way to be part of the industry, whether it's through the creative side or the trading side or the analytical side. It's just terrific. I want to thank the STA and Jim, Kate, and Julie for this award and thank my fellow recipients. They're absolutely spectacular. And I do believe that part of being a mentor, when we looked at the definition in the, I guess we would call it on Google now, I would have said in the dictionary before, lead by example. And I think that's always something that I've taken to heart. You have to embrace the process, but you have to strive to lead and you have to opinion and stick with your values. And when you do that, I think other people will begin to believe in themselves. And that's part of the reason that I think you attach yourself and you find out who are good mentors and mentees. Those are the people that will come to you and you will be able to help them advance in their career and become their advocate.
You know, it's interesting because in the previous panel, they talked about a mentor versus a sponsor and a combination of both, which I do want to get to as we work our way down through this. But mentoring has been given its challenges, given the fact that we are now trying to mentor in a hybrid environment. Lisa, would you care to comment on that? And then the other ladies on the panel, feel free to chime in, because it is very different. Not that it's either bad or good or better or worse, but it is different mentoring in a hybrid environment.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that a lot of us, whether we're mentors or mentees or just in general in the industry, is we're suffering from Zoom fatigue. We're lucky we could gather that way tonight, but look, we'd all rather be together in person. And as we do acclimate to back to our offices, whether that be 1 day or 3 days or whatever. I think what we have to do is really embrace the opportunity to be together. We have to put purpose in our relationships. And I think that that's very important. I think when you're there 5 days a week and from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., sometimes you forget how important that time together is and what a good experience it could be. Look, at home, sometimes, especially some of our younger colleagues, became a little bit lonely. I mean, their life was disrupted. And I think that when we're getting back to the office, part of the responsibility of us in the hybrid experience is to embrace them again and to get them back focused on what their journey is and get them involved in their goals and to become more attached to their achievements and to also, again, advocate for them and those different things.
Julie or Jennifer, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. I mean, I think, I think actually I heard some interesting stuff from Joe and some other panelists on the previous panel. I think there's two issues, right? I think, we need to be a little bit more flexible because there is going to be somewhat of a demand from certain people now to want to work at home. But how does that correlate into our industry? And so, I mean, as Joe said, the finance industry is at its core a relationship-based industry, right? And I think that translates to the client, the customer relationship in your firm relationships, whether you're working with different departments or within your same department, and I think that's where you kind of have to find like a nice line to dance, right? Like Lisa was saying, whether it's 1 day or 3 days or 5 days, we don't know what that picture is going to look like. And it's not one size fits all for everyone, right? So the ability to adapt how we mentor, how we use that time when we're together is so critical, right? And I think that, the younger, you're seeing like the really younger right out of school, they're amped, they want to be in the office, those kind of in their 30s where they're having children and they're getting married, they want a little bit more home time. And then some of the more senior people are, want a hybrid or want to be. So there's just, there's lots of different people we're going to have to adapt to, especially if you want to attract talent, right? But then figuring out how to best mentor in that time, whether it's, really strategizing about the time you're together in the office, like Lisa was saying, as well as making sure the times you're out of the office, you don't fade away. So, I think that that's that we're going to face. And like I said, we don't know yet, right? So not one size is going to fit all. So it's just, I think it's like everything else we adapt. But I do think that, the basis and the core of the finance industry itself, whether it's trading and talking to the other traders or, things like that, it's relationship based. So I'm interested to see how it all plays out. But I think it's going to be a nice, mix between both.
And Julie, if I could get you to expand on that and also talk about something that I think it was Michael Lynch in the previous panel, it could have been Joe, however, talking about the fact that flexibility is something that can attract talent, certainly, but the key, once you find that talent, is to mentor them and also to retain them. And it's going to be interesting in this hybrid environment to see how that plays out.
I think that's absolutely right. I found that during the work at home time, all at home, all the time, you really had to be, or I really had to be more intentional about the mentoring opportunities. And I ended up doing a lot more one-on-ones because that seemed to be the way to do it. And everyone had Zoom fatigue, as you say. But I remember when I was starting out, I learned so much from observing people in an office setting, mentors and otherwise, right? You pick up a lot from doing that. And so that's a real pickle, I think, that we all have to deal with, is how do you provide those sorts of insights to people when you're not always in an office environment. But at the same time, what an interesting opportunity we're having now to rethink how this is done. And I think probably all of us on this call can remember a time when we were sweating to ask for some flexibility after having a child or what have you. And I don't think that's a thing that's going to be happening anymore, specific to that scenario, right? It's a whole different type of question now. And I think that part of our role will be to really listen and figure out where, you know, people are across the spectrum, and try to be doing the most we can to provide flexibility that works for people in different stages of life.
I think we
it
really
will be fun to craft it, right?
Right.
Hard but fun,
Exactly.
I think, and good in the end.
I think what we have to do too is just reduce the tension, because I think that there's a lot of tension with people returning to the office. It's the one thing that I felt, and I feel like we should talk about the benefits of being in the office, and also the flexibility, and just let people talk about it. I think that would relieve a lot of the pressure, because everybody's coming, you know, on a different train or on a different car, and gets there differently, or walks to work, and it's a different experience. And I think we just need to really verbalize that, and reduce that, you know, the what do I say, what do I do, and it would be really helpful for everybody at the job.
And I also think what plays into it is also the role that people play at a company, right? I mean, if they are
Exactly.
you know, a trading role, a client-facing role, a sales role, or maybe they're in accounting, right? So I think it depends kind of like what their role is in the company, and, you know, are they a mentor, right? Are they a mentee? You know, like, where do they fit into that kind of landscape of the company? And like Lisa said, also like quality of life, like Julie was saying, like, we don't have to compromise certain things anymore. So why should we? And I think it's up to us, Lisa, Julie, Sue, you know, all of us, to help pave the way, right, for that future generation. Like Julie and Lisa were saying, we can create it, right, where we don't have to feel guilty or afraid to ask for certain things, or, you know, this is a quality of life. It's not affecting my productivity. You know, if I need this, then meet me halfway, kind of thing. And I think we can help pave the way to that being a normality rather than, you know, not.
How much, though, does that ability to execute what you just laid out depend on the overall either size or culture or complexion of a particular firm? Because there are all different kinds of firms on Wall Street. We know, big, small, boutique, whatever you want to call it. And the culture can be dramatically different at each one of them. So navigating that, or mentoring someone who's trying to navigate that, is not always easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, listen, one of the things I've been saying for the past 2.5 years is, you know, the culture at Dash is something I am truly in love with. I think the people are great. It's a small company, though. You know, I mean, we have 100 employees in the US. I mean, so I think it's easier to, like, you know, for a smaller company, because you have less people that, you know, you can be a little bit more, you know, custom, right? Whereas if you have thousands and 10,000s of employees, it gets a little bit more of like a legal issue. And, you know, there are some red tape things there, I think, when you become a larger, more bureaucratic, you know, firm. But, you know, that's just my experience, you know. But one of the things I really do value about Dash is, you know, they really are that type of company. The culture is so flexible, and, you know, at the same time, you know, our productivity has been off the charts. So, you know, that I think is also a proven fact, right? The company has to look at, you know, how their productivity, but I do think the size definitely plays a factor. And I think it's a bit easier for smaller companies to be a little bit more flexible, but that's just my experience.
Julie, would you agree?
I would. I think that the approach to flexibility is going to be a major feature of company culture going forward. Right? So the two things are going to come together. And I think culture is always a differentiator when job candidates are looking to where they fit in and where they feel comfortable. And that's going to just be a part of it. Right? And I do think that the trick is, I think we all know that one size fits all is not going to work. The trick is, how do you create options that still have a fairness across the organization, regardless of size, really? But I agree. I think that things are typically easier in a smaller organization, although that does depend somewhat on the function. But yeah, I think it's going to be, you know, it's going to be add it to the list of things you would say make up the culture of a workplace
Right
now for the future.
Lisa, could you talk a little bit about something that was mentioned in the previous panel, and that is mentoring, which, you know, we all try and do. You know, I certainly would not have been successful in my career without several wonderful mentors. but the idea of having to have a sponsor, someone who can do something actionable to help your career move forward, maybe with a mentor in the background. Do you need that combination? Do you find that a more effective combination, do you think?
I absolutely do. And Sue, just briefly, I wanted to just harken back to the previous question about culture, and both Julie and Jennifer spoke from such a perfect place, and maybe about a smaller company. And I work for a wonderful company called ClearBridge Investments, which is part of a huge global firm,
Right.
Franklin Templeton. And most recently, within the last 2 years, my division actually took on a group in Australia, and I was lucky enough to get to go over and to embrace that group. And I went particularly to show them a little bit more about the culture of the firm. So I was kind of like the cultural liaison in Australia, and it was exciting, but it takes management. Yeah, it takes management to recognize that, because people are very far away. I mean, we think we're far away on Zoom calls. Well, how about people being half the day around the world, but working
Right.
at your very same company? So those kind of things are very important. And I think it's important to have people like the gentleman that received the awards on the previous call to embrace and really make sure that the culture is spread to everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what time of the day it is, because it's always, as the daylight moves, that's still part of your culture. But I do agree. With Michael. He's been an advocate for all of us. I know Michael has been a champion for me in many of my industry organizations. And it's nice to have somebody as a mentor. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to the board table and you getting a promotion or perhaps compensation change, that kind of thing, you really do need to have somebody in that room that speaking on your behalf. I mean, we all know that,
Right.
whether it works out every time or not, regardless, you need to have that person there. And I think that you build those relationships, and your mentor helps you find who could be that person in the room, who will be sitting at that board table and making those decisions. And they have your name on their list in the top 1, 2, or 3 for sure.
Well, you took my question, because I was going to say, and how do you find that person? Especially if you're working in a larger firm. Julie or Jennifer, any tips on, let's say in the perfect world, you have several wonderful mentors, negotiate trying to find a sponsor, someone who can be actionable on your behalf?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I played that role a handful of times at Dash, actually. And I think it just, sometimes it's a personality thing, like,
Right.
Everybody tells you everything. I'm like, because they know they can trust me, and I'll come with a fair fight for them, and that I have a seat at the table, right? But not everybody does, right? So these people have sought me out, right? And will talk to me, and then I'll escalate that, because I think it's important there. I think they're not getting, and every single time it's worked out for them, so, and that's another great thing about Dash too, like having the ability to really advocate for someone. And, I think it really becomes, it's definitely going to be harder in a larger company, right? But I think in any company, your group is essentially small, right? So finding whoever the managers within those groups, spending some time with them, I think that's a big part of also being a good manager, right? Is truly caring about the people that work for you and creating a path for them and supporting them. So, I think, in a big organization, probably looking, having your mentor help you find the right manager or managers within your division that can really come in for you, and that will keep an eye out for you, or that, you feel that you can call up on the phone and say, hey, I don't really know what to do about this situation. What do you think? And I think that's a personality thing. If you can make people feel that they can trust you and that they can come to you and that you'll handle the situation the right way for them, I think they start flocking.
And, Julie, not to throw you a curveball, but if you want to elaborate on, what Jen just said, but also the ability or the encouragement of a mentor to encourage you to take risk. Because one of the ways that depending, it really goes across industries, but one of the ways that you can stand out to that manager or whoever it is raising your hand and saying, yes, even if you're saying yes to something that is outside your comfort zone. And I think in that case, I think a mentor is extremely important in encouraging you to take that risk and being there for the feedback if it doesn't always work out the way you thought it was going to work out.
Right. Okay. Well, let me say a little bit about the previous topic. I do think I kind of, that question was making me harken back to what I said about observing people and how much you learn from that. And I think you start to get an idea of who you might want to approach, who might seem like a good mentor to you. But in my experience, I think that and a piece of advice for a younger employee I would give is, go ask questions of ask them to help you understand something, or better yet, ask them for advice. And see what kind of response you get, because some people, most people are more than happy to do that. They may not stop in the middle of the day and say, gosh, I should give that person advice. But if you ask them, you'll be surprised at what you'll get back. And I think those conversations will lead to a deeper relationship, and you'll get a feel for who's really you're connecting with in terms of how you want to proceed with your career. So that's one thing I would say. In terms of taking risks, I think that oftentimes that's a little bit easier for a mentor who is your direct supervisor to do, or in your direct line, because in that arrangement, the person can, I call it sometimes, throw their cape over you, sort of, help you manage through it and give you the confidence then after you've done the work to present it and help you identify any gaps and all of that in there. But I think also there's often company-wide projects where people who are not in your line would appreciate having a different perspective. I think we've all been there where we've read a document so many times we really can't see it anymore. Sometimes we just need somebody with a fresh perspective to do it. And if you have the time and the energy and the interest, call me all day, every day. I welcome it.
Well, Lisa, the other issue is some people, at least in the broadcasting industry, are somewhat reluctant to be mentors because they view that person as competition. And I don't know whether that's true in the world of finance, but I have seen it repeatedly in the broadcast world. And I find it fascinating because, listen, none of us are standing still. We're all trying to move forward, right? And especially as women, the only way you can elicit change in an industry is to help those who are around you to perform better. And in my book, it only reflects better on you, but it doesn't always work that way in certain industries. What are your thoughts about that?
I think once you become confident in yourself and then your position and how well you do your job, I think it's a natural to be able to mentor someone because you're only going to raise everyone up. And it's funny because I made a list before we started our conversation tonight, and it's really, really long. And these are just some of the women that have helped me in my career, and they're wonderful and they're diverse and they were real first movers. I mean,
right.
The financial industry as well as the broadcast industry, it was an interesting place for women to start. There weren't that many women. We're thankful to them all, from Muriel Siebert on up, Doreen Morgavero on the floor, Maria Bartiromo on the floor, you at CNBC being a lead anchor. I mean, starting in your first show. I mean, it's just like us. We started that way. And I think, it's just natural. I think anybody who's going to choose to be a mentor is someone who's going to be self-confident, who wants to raise everyone up. And if someone is offered that position and they're competitive with the people that they mentor, they're probably not in the right. Not everybody's going to be a mentor. And let's face it, not everybody wants to be a mentee. So it's definitely, it's definitely something that has to be it has to make sense for both parties. I think that that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it also weighs back to culture. I think, you know, at Dash, we don't stand for egos, right? We're a small company. If we can't all, you know, and look, obviously there's certain roles, that the sales roles that tend to be more competitive, you know, whereas product role is not, you know, so it, like I said, depends on the role, but it also depends on the culture and what the company allows people, how they're allowed to treat people, right? No condescension, right? I mean, you know, how people speak to people. I mean, these are all go back to that. Like, there are no egos. We're all here to help each other and support each other. And I think if a company can maintain that culture, and like we've said before, larger the company, you know, the harder it is. But the more we have advocates like us and Joe and, you know, the gentleman on the panel before, you know, we can steer that continually. Like Lisa was saying, look how far we've grown over the past 25 years, you know. And
absolutely.
Are now, thanks to all of you here. And, you know, like Lisa said, many of her female mentors, I know Doreen, I mean, I grew up on the NYSE floor. So, you know, I'm right there with you, Lisa. So, you know, I think it's just making sure that we continue to steer that path and that culture where we can. And make sure that there are no egos. And I also think, you know, the last question, what Julie was talking about, you know, in terms of, you know, advocating for yourself, you know, I think knowledge is power. And that's what I tell, you know, the people that I mentor, that insert yourself. Sometimes there are company-wide projects. I mean, I never touched anything related to marketing until, you know, my last company, and one of my great mentors, Shelly Ellaby, I don't know if you're on here, I love you, you know, really taught me a lot about that. And I was able to take that skill and bring it to the next job, you know, like, so learning that, like, you know what, sometimes you may not even know what you're doing, but getting yourself involved in a project, you're going to learn that knowledge. And then the next time you're going to be the master of it. And you're going to be able to take that knowledge. There's a lot of things that transpire across different companies, right? So you can take those knowledges and not being afraid to do that. And ultimately, knowledge is power.
You know, I've had several wonderful mentors as on the broadcast side and also on the finance side in covering business. And one of them said to me, he said, listen, just say yes. Whatever comes your way, just say yes. It might not always work out, but you'll learn from that and you'll find your strength. And that's actually how I ended up covering the futures markets. This was at the beginning of my career. I had no idea, but I was 21. When you're 21, you say yes, and you end up covering the futures markets. And you know what? That led me to another area of business news. And if I had not said yes, I would never have, you know, expanded my knowledge base. And so I think that goes back to my question about risk taking and realizing that we're all better together, and we can't go back. We have to continue to go forward.
I agree.
Final thoughts, ladies? I think despite my technological gaffe at the beginning, we're almost out of time. So any final thoughts? Julie, then Lisa, and then Jen.
You know, I think that as we've talked about it today, you know, I think like Lisa said, there are some natural mentors out there and some natural mentees, people who yearn for that kind of connection, direction, and encouragement at work. And I think for a lot of people, it really makes all the difference in terms of accomplishing what you're capable of. And so it's a terrific experience, or has been for me, on both sides of the coin. And like I say, even today, sometimes I'm not quite sure which side I'm on. I'm just in a conversation, and I'm learning too. So,
right.
You know, I think that for anybody who puts time into it, it pays great dividends. To have a salute to our industry there.
Lisa?
Well, I absolutely think that it's important. And I was thinking about this, not just at work, but through other things that we do outside of work. Our industry organization. Here we are with the Security Traders Association. There are regionals like mine, the Security Traders Association of New York, the National Organization of Investment Professionals. I feel like there are people there that that you want to lead them up the way too, just like you do at work. And I think that that's so important. And I think that the one motto that I've always lived by, as funny as it may sound, I was a pretty serious softball player when I was growing up. And one of my first coaches gave me this and said it to me. I was going out in the game and he said, Lisa, just remember, you can do it. And I think as a mentor, if you just instill that into your community and the people that you embrace and that you interact with, I think you'll win everything in spades. Excellent. Jen?
Well, I didn't get to say thank you earlier. So thank you to the STA, Lisa, Julie, Sue. This has been a pleasure. You are all amazing women. And just to wrap up on the mentorship, I mean, I think it's exciting for me. You know, I'm in the heart of my career. I'm at a company that really empowers me to have a voice. And like Julie said, I'm in a learning process too, you know, to keep adapting and make sure that, you know, as our landscape changes, that we can continue this path that we're all on, right? In creating and driving and empowering young women and men in our industry to, you know, have voices, to self-advocate, take risks, and really to, you know, break down these barriers of kind of, you know, miscommunication. So.
Excellent. Ladies, it has been such a pleasure. Congratulations on everything. I wish you all the best, and I hope I get a chance to be with you again, hopefully in person, but if not, virtually, because we'll take what we can get as long as we can be together. And Kate, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you so much, Sue, and thank you all for joining us this evening. And congratulations again to all 8 of our award recipients. And thank you for your dedication to the advancement of women. Time and time again, we read about how the most diverse companies now are more likely now than ever to outperform financially. And I applaud all of you for your efforts on this front. Good night and happy holidays from all of us at the STA.